Head to Whole Foods Market to jumpstart your January during our New Year boosting event with savings on feel-good favorites store-wide. Save on organic picks, wellness staples, and more all month long.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. What's up everybody? Happy Tuesday. I'm coming out from Football Brain, returning and re-emerging in the rest of the world with all of you. It's pretty crazy. I think I've never been so locked into one of those in a long time. I was talking to you yesterday on your show, Callow, and you reminded me. It's the first time I can remember that I haven't, at least for the last month, been thinking about free agents or who's going to get fired or what terrible headlines were going to show up or what next year looks like, that I was actually in it for the first time in a long time. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, it's the first time in my life that I'm not talking about crappy ownership, a new head coach, a new GM, a new team president, getting a franchise quarterback. All of those things are taken care of. And it's a weird feeling to not have this looming major thing get addressed. It's very weird. It's very weird to me.
It is weird. It's good weird.
Yeah, totally.
So, I think for me, I'm toggling between I'm very close to it. And I felt it too Sunday. And to the point of what we're just talking about, I've been immersed in it differently than I have, in recent years. I've always been immersed in it, but then always come December, the reality of what's about to take place takes form and you start to shift gears. I'm starting to think about the combine and the draft picks and, the cap room and are there going to be changes again and all that stuff. And that didn't happen this year, all obviously for good reason. But this time, because it was the first year, because their roster's not complete, because there are still a lot of things that have happened this year, it's a big offseason coming up here, there was kind of this middle ground of this ride's incredible. Let's do it. Magic carpet ride. It's awesome. I'm in on it. I don't want to blinders up. I'm with them, blinders up. But there was this deep recess of the brain part of me going, this is still year one. They don't have that kind of team yet. And this is incredible. Let's see how far it goes. But all that said, I'm very pleased, right? I'm very happy. This is, as some people were calling it, house money. All that stuff was going on for a few weeks. And they didn't believe that. But there was a part of me that goes, are you pulling the wool over your own eyes to pretend because you just don't want to admit that you've accomplished something that maybe was beyond expectation? And if you were wondering if they were going to be surprise, we really thought we did great, guys. We'll take your round of applause now. That did not happen yesterday. That place was a funeral. And I'm not surprised and surprised all at the same time. Because if you watched, I went to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn's season-ending press conference yesterday because I wanted to see what they had to say. And Peters is very good at not saying very much about intentions. So we can get in, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because he really revealed nothing about what they intend to do, what the roster is going to look like, who they might, go after, what their priorities are. None of it really came up. But what became abundantly clear was they expected to win on Sunday, and they are not living in this land of we played with any kind of house money. They, and I mean genuinely, were distraught yesterday when they walked up there to talk to everybody. And I think they really believed that they were going to win and be in the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. And I guess let's go. All right, good. You want to talk about the standards have changed? Go look at how they acted when everybody else is giving them the great season, guys, great season. And they're not hearing it right now. I think at some point they'll reflect and go great season, but they didn't want to hear it yesterday. I'm telling you, man, that was a wake when I was at yesterday.
No, I heard the press conference too, and Dan Quinn started it by saying, I'm sure there's a time to reflect on the season. It's not now. And even I was like, whoa, they're even kind of keeping the tone set after the game. And as we have literally become like, this has been like a documentary this season with us doing the show. I still circle back to the post last preseason game before the first regular season game. Both of them went out there, and you saw my reaction when they went out there and said, we think we can win right now. And I went, whoa, you guys told me it's a recalibration. You're putting a lot of expectations on. Well, that recalibration, and then into we think we can win right now, even flowed into yesterday, even the day after losing in the NFC Championship game. They are not satisfied. They're not going to tell you it was some magical season, at least right now. Like, I hope they do, look at what this season was. But to go from end to end with that kind of expectation and the expectation to win, I mean, honestly, it's unlike anything I have seen in my lifetime watching this team in terms of a mantra and a culture change.
It's full on. It's genuine too. I remember, man, I mean, this goes way back. This goes back to week three. Week three, they beat Cincinnati. Jaden has his first Magic game. It's a big stage. Everybody said they were going to lose. This would be repetitive throughout the year because no one expected anything from them. That was incredible. And I remember after the game, when I talked to Quinn on the broadcast, I said to him, this team's going to get a lot of attention starting tomorrow because you were on Monday Night Football. You just beat a premier team. You just beat Joe Burrow. Your quarterback just went toe-to-toe with him. Your quarterback made the crazy play at the end of the game. You guys are 2-1 now. You're going to get a lot of heat for this. And he just looked me dead in the eye and he goes, don't get on the roller coaster. He goes, don't do it. Like, they didn't want it from the get-go. They expected it from the get-go. I thought it was really revealing last week when they finally addressed the outside that no one believes in you. They finally addressed that. And Quinn's quote was, after week one, when we lost, when people said, hey, man, you'll get them next time, he goes, F you. That's not what it's going to be around here. I'm going to show you right now, which I agree with you. When it went back at the end of camp, I remember when they did that press conference and they said, we think we can win right now. And I went, okay, I appreciate that. But there's always when the guys do this, because we've been around it so long, there is some level of I'm putting on a front. And you know this and I know this, but we want to win, genuinely want to win. But come on, we know the reality of this. We don't have the Chiefs team yet. We don't have the Eagles team yet. There's a front that has to be put up. That wasn't a front. They honestly, literally believed it day to day, week to week. Every time, I stopped doing it by the end of the season, but every time after a game when they did something else and they reached some other benchmark, like Quinn became the first coach with double-digit wins since Joe Gibbs, in his first year, or had the most wins in a season, other than Joe Gibbs, the only one to have 12 wins in a season, or Jaden's numbers are so off the charts that, you have to mention it. We're talking about different eras. At every point, when you brought any of this stuff up, they would look at you like you were crazy that you were trying to celebrate it. They wanted to accept the win. They wanted to be celebrated for that. But if you started this is incredible what you guys have done and the rest is gravy, they won't put the potatoes down to let you put the gravy on it, was what it was. And I got used to it. It's something you get through the rhythms. It's the first year of me working with this group. You get through the rhythms of this. It became abundantly clear to me that their standard was, we expect this. We don't care if it's ahead of schedule or you think it's weird or everyone's dismissing us and can't believe what's going on. We expected this. And if you were wondering if there ever was a front, yesterday was the final piece of proof that it wasn't. Those two looked like they had just seen a ghost yesterday sitting up there. They were distraught, talking about the near miss of a season. I can imagine the season-ending press conference for Baltimore or Buffalo the last couple of weeks where they not only are right there, they've been right there. And they've been right there for a long time. And both teams are sitting there going, when is it going to be our turn? And that would feel like a funeral, that another opportunity went away. We're all sitting here going, we haven't been to this party in a long time, and it's awesome. Can't we just dance and have fun? And they're going, no, we're those guys now. And we want you to understand that our expectation is, even if it's advanced or ahead of schedule or however you want to describe it, this is what it is here. And you know what? Moving forward, good, great. You know what? I won't bring that stuff up again. We should celebrate the successes, but we need to get used to this group believes that we're one of those teams now. They have felt it from the get-go, and they don't want your, hey, nice try, guys. We really liked the try that you gave.
No, absolutely. When they said that they had the expectations of winning after that first press conference, I went, uh-oh, this group speaks really well, and I don't have to criticize them that much because everything they say is very calculated. It's said in a good way. And like right away, I was like, oh, this team's not good enough to do what they just said. Well, NFC Championship game later, they absolutely were. And the fact is, they also, I think, are bringing on what Jaden has brought on too, where Jaden, after every loss, has not just been like sad, but like pissed that they lose. Yes. That dude, he's the old saying, he hates losing more than he likes winning, is who Jaden Daniels is. And so
he almost can't believe it when he loses. You could like feel that from him. Like he knows it's a reality and you can't win every game, but it oozes out of him disbelief that he lost a game.
He is like a as I called him, and then Dan Quinn eventually called him the Terminator. It doesn't compute with him when they lose. Like he doesn't know how or why it happens. And so I think so too. I don't know which one came first, but both parties there, with Jaden and with management, with Peters and Quinn, have this expectation of winning because I think they both believe in each other at this point, and they know that when that guy steps on the field, they do have a chance. And you need everyone pulling on the same rope. Even if you do have a worse roster, if everyone's pulling on the same rope, you got a chance in every single game.
You know, I do, just as a human, think you need to enjoy the ride as it goes. And I'm not saying they don't, but the bottom line of win it all or it's all not worth it, which is not what they said, but gave the feeling of yesterday. That's just a tough way to live, right? That's a tough way to live. So, you know, we'll see moving forward, but I appreciate that the standard isn't just slogans or, you know, like, hey, let's just give it our good, you know, like, hey, we went really far. That's not what they're into. And everyone else, because it's so new to us, so unusual to us, and actually feels organically real, we're just kind of enjoying it because we haven't had a ride like this in a long time. What they're saying is, we're not just taking you for a ride. This isn't just entertainment to us. Our goal is to win it all. Peters, I learned this early, just getting to know him a little bit. And they're not that. Quinn's very accessible. Peters isn't, and I think for good reason. He doesn't want to tell you what they're doing all the time, and I don't blame him for that. He's really nice, approachable guy, but he's not going to talk to you a lot. Pentagon secrets with him, but in general. But I could tell early that. And I remember I said to him once, I said, if you ever want to come in the booth and just hang out for, a few series or whatever, you're more than welcome to do that. And he goes, you don't want me in there. And he was like, I will bring the wrong energy to that. And I could tell, because I've seen him after games where I've never seen someone where the games are like eating at him or feeding him. Like he is a hyper competitive person. Quinn, when he talks about how he's changed, and this is a second go around for him, this locked in part of him, don't listen to anybody else. It's all in here. And if we don't win, it's on us type of mentality, and feeling that internally, like it's clear that that's what he wants. He wants to be in the moment. He wants to believe they're going to win. He doesn't want to hear anything from the outside, even if it's crazy positive. He doesn't want to, he wants the fans to be in it as they were. He wants the support, but he wants everybody rowing the boat the same way, which is our standards are high. And then Jaden is the Terminator. When he loses, he looks like he's going to murder somebody. He cannot stand the idea of the whole thing. So this is all good news, I think, but to go back to the examples of Baltimore and Buffalo, it could kill you inside if you're not careful, because look at Buffalo, who's got a Hall of Fame quarterback and have had a window open for 5 years, and they just can't beat that one team every single year. It will eat at you. And eventually, listen, I guess they've circled the wagons a million times. They keep coming back, and they are right there. And I'm like, that's my hope for this team, is that no matter whatever the result is, they circle the wagons and they're right back there. So I hope that that's the case. But it was really eye-opening, because they did not drop the front for a second. And if you didn't believe it before, you better believe it now, because they were literally, you would have thought they lost weight, like a death in the family occurred the way that they were holding that press conference yesterday.
No, I mean, to get to your first part of of this conversation about the team like enjoying these things, I will say, like, those post-game videos, you watched out for them every single week, because they were a different celebration every time, and especially in the playoffs, right? Like the Cartier glasses in Detroit, like somebody had to organize that, because they expected to win. So I will say, I think what this brings it around to, though, for me, is Quinn knew there was a time and a place for everything, and it's like one of my favorite things. He compartmentalized everything every day of the week, right? It was, you could celebrate this on Sunday, then it was tell the truth Monday, then it was competition Wednesday. Thursday and Friday seemed to be like normal business hours for them. But I remember last week where he basically said, look, I tell all of these guys, we can only tackle what is ahead of us on each day. And that's just the mantra that I think that they had. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like they were going in the locker room after that Detroit game and not celebrating it. So I will say, I just think he had them so locked in of enjoy this for this set amount of time. And then on Monday, we go back to work and we've got to settle it in. And that's the type of culture that I think we needed to have as a reset here. Don't celebrate that regular season blowout win over Arizona any more than you need to, essentially, right? And that's what I like about this. It's a reset on things they should have been doing for a long time. Yeah.
He I learned a lot about him through the first year. And one of the words that I came up with by the end of it was he's extremely thorough. Really thorough. And it stands out because the last coach was not. And there was a lot on his plate. And I'm not trying to go back and dump on Ron, but like it was a clear difference. And granted, he also gets to focus on the team and not all the other things. That's Ron's fault, because he put himself in that position. But he had a lot on his own plate. Quinn had the team. That's it. Let Adam do the rest of the stuff that needs to be dealt with. And they worked hand in hand. So it was a different job, but every day, every press availability, he had specific messages for every single one of them. He would open it with a very specific message of, this is what today is. This is what we're doing. This is why we do this way. And they've revealed through, the year why they did this stuff. That he was never not on time. I mean, it was to a T of when he would show up and be there. Every week when I spoke to him before, like when he put me on his calendar, he was there literally on the dot so if I was late, it was going to be on me to like show up. He was extremely thorough, and that was really refreshing too. And I think that carries over. He's a very good communicator. He's very good at relationship building. He's very thorough. And that also goes a long way, because if you're going to preach this type of stuff, you better be there every step of the way, reinforcing it every literal step of the way. And he and Peters did that throughout the year. So, I think that might be part of it too. We know we did our part to do our best. It is football. That's a really good team. You can't win them all. It doesn't mean that we didn't think we were going to do it, even if no one else did. And that comes back to, you can only feel that way if you were literally all in, like as all in as you can possibly be. And they were. And I think that's probably partially why the players play so hard and have so much belief in them, is they see it from them that this isn't talk or slogans. They're there every day doing exactly what they said they were going to do by the minute, and it's carried over, and hopefully it will continue to carry over, because if this is the standard, trust me, that's what I want to give a round of applause to, because that's what we've been waiting for, that this isn't a one-off, or we got lucky for a year, or someone's going to screw the whole thing up. Like, because I don't feel like that's going to happen now, but maintaining this is hard, and we'll see how they do in year 2 and beyond.
No, I mean, I would say even Lou, go look at what happened with the coordinators, with the head coaching cycle, right? Both Joe Witt and Cliff Kingsbury were like, yeah, I hear it. Yeah, I'd like to be a head coach, but I'd be cheating this whole entire organization if I was thinking about anything else other than the game, upcoming. I mean, I think that doesn't happen unless it is contagious in the building about how they all feel about each other, essentially. And that is pulling on the same rope. And like I said, a culture reset where everybody actually cares about what's going on literally from hour to hour, it seems.
Yeah. Since you mentioned Cliff, there is a job open. It's the Saints. Of the many, many interviews that I did last week, because, our team got real popular and, so many places that are kind of in the know did ask about him to the Saints, which does lead me to believe that they have sincere interest in him. They're the last opening. They've waited this long to fill it. They're waiting for something. If you look at the Super Bowl teams, there aren't coordinators there that scream are going to be the person that they're waiting for. Like Vic Fangio isn't leaving Philadelphia to go become the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Maybe they're eyeing Kellen Moore. Maybe they're eyeing Spagnuolo. Maybe, but probably not. They've probably waited, especially because from my experience last week with talking to all these people, I think they're waiting to talk to Cliff. Cliff has not done any interviews with anybody because he wanted to stay locked in. And two, he loves Jaden Daniels and loves what's going on here. I've heard he loves living here too. And three, he's still getting paid head coach money from the Cardinals. So because of that, all of those things, I've kind of landed on, you're going to have to overwhelm him with some kind of opportunity, more than money, to actually get him to take it. But there is a part of me that goes, well, they're waiting to have that conversation with him. And they probably know that. And considering what the guy in Jacksonville just got, the money might be, a little too hard to turn down unless Cliff just doesn't want to leave, which I hope is the case. And when Adam Peters was asked about him, he literally did not comment on what's coming this week for Cliff Kingsbury, which gave me a little bit of pause of, they've asked to speak to him and they've waited this long to speak to him.
No, exactly right. I'm with you. I think they would have to overwhelm him, though, with a paycheck. And you and I had talked about this over the last couple of weeks. The head coaching vacancies this offseason were not desirable. Yes, guys are going to take those jobs because it's once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. But we've seen this in the modern NFL over the last 5, 6, 7 years where guys don't just take any job anymore. And I thought Ben Johnson was a great example of it the last 2 seasons, actually, where he just decided he didn't want to do this, wanted to stay in Detroit one more year, and he takes the Bears job. That's a desirable gig. If you're Cliff, I mean, if you want to be a head coach again, so be it. But I don't know if I'd want to do it with that team, that quarterback, that roster, that salary cap situation. All signs point to they're going to give it the old college try, but I think it's hard to envision him leaving us for that scenario.
I can't either, but I don't know what they're, want to talk to him about. So we're going to find out. The only piece of news really from the locker room was Zach Ertz made it very clear he's not going to retire and he would like to return here. It even said so much, I wish I was 22 starting over with this quarterback because I think we could scratch the surface. He's one of the interesting decisions that they have to make. He is older. He was very good for them, specifically in the red zone. He's not a dynamic down the field threat, but he's an extremely reliable player, and he did click with this quarterback. And if he's got gas left in the tank and he's not asking for a ton of money, which I would doubt would be the case, I don't see why they wouldn't bring him back. I think the hope was Ben Sinnott would develop a little bit more as the receiving tight end and less of the blocker special team player. I'd have to talk to the coaches to find out where they feel about him. John Bates is up as well, but he's not a receiving threat, big time receiving threat. So how do they feel about him? Do they want to bring him back as well? But Ertz is one of the interesting ones of the many players on this list. I'm going to do it later this week. I don't want to do it today, but I'll do it later this week. They got a very long list of free agents. This is going to be a very different team next year. Again, they're not bringing everybody back. They have a draft class. There's going to be 15 to 20 new players again. Ertz is one that I'll be interested to see what they do about that. I have a feeling that they'll bring him back if he's, going to be reasonable about the salary, which I imagine he would, and reasonable about the role. It may not be as big, or because they even admitted they didn't expect him to have this size of role that he had, that he ended up having. I think that he proved he can be relied upon more than they even thought, which is why I think he'll come back, but probably not with as prominent role as he had this past season.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that first point. I think they expected a little bit more by Ben Sinnott at the end of the season. What I will say, though, is Ertz became so good at the end of the season. I don't know how you were going to put a rookie in that role any more than that they did. Like, Ertz became his go-to guy, not named McLaurin, for the rest of the season. I would say that the last third of the season, you expected him to go to Ertz in the red zone on those third downs. And Ertz, for his credit, he can't run away from defenders, but my God, was he great at finding that little pocket in a defense and just sitting on it. And then all of a sudden, Jaden would find him. So I'm with you.
Tremendous in the red zone.
Yes.
Tremendous in the red zone.
And I'm with you. Like, he was one of my big doubts when they signed him. I was like, really? Like, Zach Ertz? How much does he have left in the tank? Well, he ended up being maybe the most reliable target. Like I said, not named McLaurin down the stretch. I would love to have him back too. Also, because I don't know what they wanted to get out of Sinnott or if this was an expectation for how the split was going to go, but I'm fine with that. Like, it's funny. There's one room that I'm okay with just bringing back in its entirety, and it's that one. Like, I'm fine with every single one of them coming back.
Yeah, I got to find out what Sinnott's upside is for them now that they've gone through a year. We'll have to see. And again, I'll do this later this week, but just off the bat, like, what I'm looking at right now as free agency priorities, and I think there's a lot of them, but the priorities, I would put it that way, the priorities, both lines. Defensive line, offensive line, premier pass rusher if it's available. I think there's going to be decisions about John and Duran, probably John, because he has no guaranteed money. Will he be back? Will he not? I don't know. I have no real idea on that. I still think they need to bulk up in there just in general, and explosive skill. And I don't even care what position it's at. Running back, wide receiver, maybe even a tight end. At that point, they've got to give Jaden more explosive playmakers on the field to have an opportunity to pair with Terry, B-Rob Eckler, whoever it may be with them, but they need their Jahmyr Gibbs to show up here, somebody who gives them the home run explosive type playmaking ability, and I think it'll supercharge where Jaden already is. And I do believe that the offensive line is going to look different again next year. And the Cosme thing really throws a wrench into all of it because of how late that injury happened, because he was the one, he and Biadasz are the two where I'm like, okay, that's set. Let's see what moves forward. They got to think about right guard now because of the injury to Cosme. He's going to miss the whole offseason minimum. So we'll see what happens into the season. But who's the right tackle? It might be Wiley. It might not. Is Brandon Coleman staying at left tackle, or is he moving to right tackle, or maybe even guard? Is Allegretti still a starter? Is he your swing guard primary backup? I don't know. Do they have the depth that they need behind the front five? I don't think they did this past year. Like, you can't fix it all in one offseason. The offensive line is going to be retooled, and in all likelihood, because of where they're picking, I believe they're going to take the best offensive lineman probably at that position, but we'll see.
No, I think this year was who could play, and then it happened, against the Eagles once Cosme went down. It was who are our best five that you can throw out there. And so I think that's what this year, like a part of the storyline, it was way down the list compared to Jaden and the rest of the storylines going in, but it was what offensive linemen can play, and then we can go ahead and retool on the fly of who actually is going to stick around here for next season.
Yep. All right, I'll get into all the free agency stuff later this week. Let me take a quick break. Bram watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
All right, welcome back. I have to play some of the clips from Jerry Jones's press conference yesterday because I just have to. If you were wondering, where is he on the level of can he run this organization now? You're going to have questions after you hear this, because And if you've kind of followed this, and we've described it as he's lost his fastball. In hiring Brian Schottenheimer, his offensive coordinator, who wasn't calling plays, below the coach that got endorsed by the players to be retained, and then watched the other assistants, primary ones, walk out the door after, Mike McCarthy and they split up, it leaves and you know how this goes. First impressions are a lot in this sport, and it's not a good one. Now, I appreciate how long this guy's coached here and in the league, and I appreciate his family roots. Others might as well be a Hall of Famer. And so I don't think that this isn't Zorn. This isn't so far out of the realm of the right choice, but it was an unusual one for them. And it was one that needed to be defended. And Jerry had a hard time with that yesterday. So I think it's best if I just play some of the answers that he gave, because they're not great. And so here is Jerry Jones. Let's see. Here's number 1.
Jane Slater, NFL Network. Jerry, to a lot of us on the outside, it did look like this process took a bit. What was the reason for that? Was there a point during your conversations with Mike that you thought that he would stay? Was there something that came up in those conversations that you needed to change? And what did he say, or some of the coaches that you reached out to, give you confidence that this was the guy that you needed, particularly given some of the criticism about some of the decisions and the coaching in recent years?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I wasn't aware of any clock. Where's the clock? There are a hell of a lot more important things than a clock. Take a long time to do this. How about the timing to do that? If I'd have screwed around with clocks in my life, I wouldn't get to be sitting up here. And by the way, well, if you'd watched the clock, you wouldn't be sitting up here explaining why you hadn't been to a playoff game in all those years, too. I understand. I get it. One of the fun things about this deal is you get to start a new clock every time you line up for the year. And so I really can not block out the practical things, because I don't care if it is the new year. If they're about to take your house away, that'll go from last year into this year. So there's reality that goes with it. So at least I'm sitting here because I know how to deal with reality. Okay. And so to answer that question is simply, it never occurred to me there was a clock at all. When I was trying to buy the Cowboys, I think I did read someplace, Tim, you might have remembered or what have you. I read someplace where that process and all that was going on was maybe creating some time problems relative to the clock of the NFL or the clock of that. I've really not had the experience of that being the determining factor. I heard this year that we didn't get Dak signed quick enough. Dak, you're sitting right back there. You want to stand up and tell him you had something to do with that?
Okay.
They're right. He lost money by signing him so late.
Correct.
Like,
you're pointing out, you're not making your point about the clock. Plus, what was the line about you get your house taken away when you start the new year? I sure I got that one.
To me, that one was actually the least problematic. He was basically just saying your problems don't just go away from one year to the next, I guess. Yes. Which I was like, all right, fine on that one. Mine is that he keeps going back to this dumb thing of when I bought the team, or if I did this when I was buying the team. Dude, you have not won a championship in 33 years. Or you haven't been to a championship game in 33 years, or whatever the number is. It's whatever the number.
That one?
What's that one?
Have you seen the Stephen Jones one on that one?
No. What's that one?
Watch this. Okay. This is killer. This is amazing.
Obviously, we're also evaluating where it didn't go right, in terms of, this drought that people say we're in terms of championship game.
What?
Obviously.
That's right. Air quotes. We haven't been to the championship game in 30 years.
That's not an air quote. That's a fact. Like,
that's a fact. It's interesting that, like, I don't remember of all the years that we've had different coaches, I don't remember anyone bringing that up, that it was the longest drought, but in their case, because it popped up because we made it and then it became a big deal, and anything that happens to them is going to get an inordinate amount of attention. It got brought up. For them to go, air quote, we're on a 30-year drought of reaching the NFC Championship game, longest in the NFC, and you're the cow. To kind of laugh that off is not gonna fly. Just think about what we were just talking about with Quinn and Peters and how genuinely upset they were, because the standard is what the standard is, even if you don't think that we're on this kind of timeline. And they're going, drought schmout. Like, we're not on a drought.
That is one of the most ridiculous things. And by the way, I think it wasn't brought up here because I think my guess here is the media here knew that was two different ownership groups. Like this,
that's right.
This team didn't make it the last 5 years of Jack Kent Cook. And then, they handed over to Snyder, and we all know what happened during the Snyder era. And you're actually able to compartmentalize everything that went wrong with Snyder. So it wasn't like this shock that they didn't make it. Whereas the Cowboys have been really good in the regular season. He has said they're going to go all in on an offseason, and they don't. Like, there are legitimate criticisms to bring that up, but to air quote a drought, that's just true. Oh boy. Oh, that's a rodeo for that press conference yesterday. Yeah.
When asked why did he hire Brian Schottenheimer, the answer he gave was a very long, very long, rambling, like kind of nonsensical, and never really answered the question, why did you hire him? Which, there should be a reason for sure. But then there was a follow-up to him about hiring him, and essentially asking he got asked about what are you looking for in a head coach? And this was his answer to that one.
So I've seen it when I was a pup. I have a good background in the makeup of what a coach is. To think that you could make a decision in an interview and not have talked, if you didn't and hadn't ever communicated or had a visit, I wouldn't dare have had an interview unless I talked to many, many people. So I've seen it.
Okay. Why is he crying? I'm just asking.
Well, I think he feels the heat. Remember this happened, was it like 3 years ago? Remember they lost in the playoffs, of course.
Yes.
And he was just like, he just kind of lost it because.
But that's different. That's the end of a season. They should have won. They didn't. I get it there. I totally get it. They honestly, yesterday at Ashburn, those two looked like they were about to burst into tears, over what happened, in Philadelphia.
He's the owner of a football team. I'm sorry. Keep it together. I just I'm sorry. Keep it together.
When you're asked, why did you hire this guy, and you start crying?
Yeah. Come on. What are we doing here?
We often talk about on this show too, at this time of year, there's a test. And the test is
know where we're going with this because I sent it to you.
Is when you see somebody for the first time, can you envision them picking up the Lombardi trophy? And if you cannot, your gut is probably correct that it will not happen. And Liam Cohen, who we didn't talk a lot about this, the very nefarious way by which they handled the negotiation to get out from Tampa to take the head coaching job, of which I would just say in defense of this guy, like, duh, he's going to take that, even if he promised you he was going to do something else, which we can get into in a moment. But they wanted this guy bad. I mean, so bad that they fired the GM to make sure that they got him to come in here. And so they did so. But there is a test that we have that if your first impression is, I don't know if I could ever see this guy hoist the Lombardi trophy, you're probably right. So let me give you what will be your first impression off of his first press conference yesterday. This is Liam Cohen.
Duval. 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 Sorry, Jags fans. 0-17. 0-17 next year.
Oh, man. He should never do that again.
Well, look, here's the other thing. That was clearly a like a team reporter or something, because that's what they yell down there, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what you do in that scenario? You go, I'll give you one after we get the first win.
Yeah.
You don't do that in the opening press conference like that. Like, or you go, we'll leave that one to the fans. That just told me it's so
Harry Connick Jr. on it too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. Where's the verve?
Yeah, like all of a sudden I don't know about you, I felt really old watching that one. I was like, how old are these head coaches now? Because that was bad. That was really bad.
So if they were to win a Super Bowl and he were to do that, it would be a surprise.
Right. Yes.
What
correct.
do you have to say, Liam? Duval. Like that would be something.
That was
that was a tough one.
By the way, the Twitter account that tweeted that, like, do you see the name of that Twitter account? It's one of my favorites. It's like whatever a coach says.
Oh, the coach peak index.
Yeah. So that's why it says 0-17. Like,
0-17.
Yeah, exactly.
They're on my wavelength about this. You don't recover from that. It's the first date. You go on a first date,
Yeah.
Like if that person says something that's just so off, you're never going to get over it.
Red flag. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be 3-4 months in before someone can do something like that. And you go, all right.
That's right.
Law. I can get over it. 100%. Not on date one.
Yeah.
No.
You got to be 6 months in before you get the commander's tattoo. That's what's got to happen.
Correct. All right. Be right back. Bram wants to show you at 6:30 the Sports Capital. All right, let me get out of football brain for a minute, because this thing would have, in the good old days of my show, when I had longer on the air to talk about things and had to find subjects, I would have spent a lot of time with my second favorite basketball team, the Miami Heat, and one of my favorite players ever, Jimmy Butler, going sideways with old Riles to the point where he has now been suspended 3 times. He did not show up to practice the other day. This started with early in the year, them lying about asking for a trade request, so much so that Shams had to go on the air and go, I stick by my reporting. They for some reason don't want to say it publicly, but I know that they want it, to then admitting that they wanted it, to Riley saying, we're basically not trading you to anybody, to him then saying, I'll trade you, but it'll be on our terms, to now a level of he can't even function within the concept of the team. So this is a bad ending for one of my favorite players, in the place where when they put culture on their jersey, I actually believed it for a while until what's been going on here. And the sooner they get him out of there, the better, obviously now.
I think this one also settled into Jimmy Butler saw that team and saw we can't be successful and started chirping early. And I think that's where probably he and Riley butted heads, where he wanted to go. All of a sudden now he actually did go to practice the other day. He walked out of practice, which I think is actually worse. Like that's actually worse than just not being there. So this has to come to a head. What's funny too is there isn't an easy destination for him either. Like Butler's getting up there in age. We've seen it. He doesn't mesh with every team easily. He's been, he put the list of teams out there that he would and wouldn't play for. This is not a cut and dry trade for just anybody. So good luck with that one.
Yeah, good luck with that one. As for the Capitals, now that I'm out of football brain, still 7 points clear of everybody in the East, getting set to finish up a road trip. They did make their goaltender choice. So you'd have to correct me on this one. I'd heard, I guess they didn't want to upset either one of them.
Yep.
But eventually they had to sign one of them, and clearly this was the one that they were going to sign, Logan Thompson. But they didn't want to, I guess, upset Lindgren along the way here, because they do need both of them for the rest of the season. But they've come around to a 6-year deal for Logan Thompson. So what do you make of the whole dynamic of doing that?
First, before I get into the dynamic, this was the goaltender you needed to re-sign.
Yes.
Logan has 22 wins on the year. I think he's 22, 2-3. An insane year so far for him. He should be in Vezina conversations, but he's not as much because he was a minor acquisition for the Caps. He's been brilliant. He is better than Lindgren at this moment in time. And I circle back to last week where, Lindgren goes on IR and all Logan Thompson does is get 2 shutouts back to back, the first 2 shutouts of the season for the team. So the guy steps up when he needs to. As far as this dynamic goes for these two, I think you need to realize it is business here. And I don't know if they have the same agent or whatever, but my guess is they've been talking to both of them for this. So I wouldn't rule out a Lindgren extension in the near future either here, but you had to get it done with Logan. And I think you had to get it done with Logan before this 4 Nations break. In a couple of weeks, they're going to break for 2 weeks. And I think you needed to get it done there, because then the trade deadline sneaks up on you. And we've actually seen it with Brian McClellan, where, I guess it wouldn't be McClellan anymore, but with this front office, where if you don't sign a contract extension, they'll trade you. Like, that's just been the mantra the last 2 years. They want you to come on board or they trade you. And
they
I think
wouldn't have with this guy. Because
no, I don't think they would have with
this
him.
year. There's no way. Yeah.
Because they would have to start him in the playoffs. But I think what it does is they wanted to get something done now, so they know what their cap situation is for some of these other pieces that maybe they want to move, maybe they don't want to move, or whatever moving forward. And I wouldn't rule it out there either with this dynamic. Does another team that needs a goaltender, do they come along and they say, hey, we'll take Lindgren for half a year and give you X, Y, and Z? There might be something there. That's just me speculating. But I would say the chances of Lindgren getting an extension are definitely more than him getting traded at the deadline or anything like that.
100%. Let's see. All right, real quick. Caps Flames tonight. What do you got?
Logan Thompson is actually from the Calgary area. They actually they didn't skip, but they gave Lindgren 2 starts off of IR, including Saturday in Vancouver, where they lost 2-1. Quinn Hughes scored 2 goals. It was a great effort by them. But they actually kind of switched up the starting, rotation so he could start tonight. Same thing the Caps have been doing. Give me like a 3-2 victory, 2-1 victory, something like that. Low scoring. There's one to pay attention here too. Connor McMichael hasn't scored since the beginning of January. He's gone completely dry. This one's worth watching because he was, leading the team in goals at one point in the season. You got to follow along what's going on that. And there's a second one here with the third line. Ethan Frank leads the team in scoring since being called up from Hershey. He's been fantastic. There's been a couple instances, though, where Lars Eller should have buried a few chances from Frank. He hasn't. I look for Spencer Carberry to tinker with those lines a little bit to see if he can get something working.
All right. See y'all tomorrow. Brave Bucks, the show is ESPN 630 Sports Capital.